At least 73% of South Africans believe gender-based violence has increased over the past year. Afrobarometer has conducted a survey into what South Africans think are contributing factors to the scourge. Many believe alcohol, drug abuse, as well as unemployment are the primary contributors. For more on this study, Asafika Mpako from the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation joins me now from Cape Town. Asafika, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Let's just qualify all of this. Just quickly, talk to us about your methodology in the research and your sample size.
Good night, and thank you so much for having me, Tony. So perhaps I should start off by just making clear that Afrobarometer is a Pan-African non-partisan survey research network that provides reliable data on African experiences of democracy, governance, and quality of life. 8 rounds of surveys have been completed in up to 39 countries on the continent since 1999. And this particular study was conducted in May and June of this year using a nationally representative sample of 1,600 adult citizens. We conducted face-to-face interviews in the language of the respondent's choice.
All right. Fantastic. Okay, so why do South Africans think that gender-based violence is getting worse?
So, in our findings, we see, as you mentioned, Tony, that 73% of South Africans say that gender-based violence in the country is getting worse. Men are just as likely as women to hold this view. So 74% of women and 71% of men say that they believe the level of gender-based violence in the country is increasing, and only about 1/4, that is 26%, of respondents say that they believe that the level of GBV in the country has either stayed the same or has decreased somewhat or a lot. So within the scope of our work, we don't ask our respondents why questions, but we can speculate that the reason why our respondents perceive gender-based violence to be increasing in the country is because of the coverage that we see on news media, on traditional forms of media, including radio, but also on social media, of the gross violations of women and children that are reported on a daily almost.
What's encouraging here when you look at your key findings is that most people are looking at domestic violence as a criminal matter and not just something for the family to sort out internally.
Yes, that's correct, Tony. So our findings show that 72% of South Africans believe that domestic violence is a criminal matter that requires the full involvement of law enforcement agencies. Women are somewhat more likely than men to take this view. So 75% of women believe that domestic violence is a matter to be handled by law enforcement agencies, and 68% of men feel the same way. But broadly speaking, most South Africans believe that domestic violence is a matter to be handled by law enforcement agencies.
I'm curious on that particular matter because, you know, as Black Africans, you tend to bring in the family to solve this problem, solve that problem. Is there a breakdown when it comes to race and maybe economic status at all?
So what's interesting, Tony, is I'll jump right into the main causes of domestic violence. So we also investigated what respondents believe to be the main causes of domestic violence in South Africa today. And from our findings, we see that 25% of respondents pointed to alcohol abuse, 20% pointed to drug abuse, 16% pointed to unemployment, 9% to poverty, 8% cited previous exposure to violence, and only 2% cited cultural and traditional values. So I would say that most people would think that resolving a matter such as domestic violence would fall within the realm of a very traditional way of thinking. And so our research shows that only 2% of people attribute the main cause of GBV to traditional and cultural values, which perhaps explains why so few people also believe that domestic violence should be handled within the context of the family unit.
And also, women are unlikely to feel unsafe or insecure than men. I suppose that maybe that's common sense to a certain extent. But talk to me about the numbers there.
Mm-hmm. So we asked our respondents what percentage of men versus women feel safe while walking in their neighborhood. So women feel somewhat less safe than men walking in their neighborhood. So in that regard, 29% of women reported, 29% of men reported feeling unsafe while walking in their neighborhood versus 27% of women. And so it's a slight difference, but it also shows us that women feel less safe in the society because, as we know, they are most vulnerable to acts of violent crime, including rape and murder. And if I could just throw in another study here, the 2020 Gallup Law and Order Index, which is an index that measures experiences of personal crime or crime and personal security, also ranked South Africa as the 5th most dangerous country out of a total of 44 countries which were surveyed. So it's no surprise that women feel so vulnerable in this society.
I wanted to ask you that because compared to other African countries, numbers-wise, how do we compare in Africa, not worldwide?
So if we look at the rest of Southern Africa, for instance, we are right up there. I mean, we really suffer from incredibly high rates of violent crime, as I mentioned, particularly rape and murder. And we are notorious for having very, very high crime rates. So in the Southern Africa region, for instance, we are in the lead position as far as violent crime is concerned. And it shows in how many people in the society feel fearful walking in their neighborhoods and also fearing crime in their own homes.
Okay, thank you so much, Asafika Mpako from the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Thank you for spending a bit of time with us this evening. So Afrobarometer did some research, and some of the key findings are South Africans say gender-based violence is worsening and blame substance abuse, amongst others.